What is up, guys? It is Robert of Gaming with Me, and welcome to a discussion talking about final bosses, final levels, and games. Now, obviously, because we are talking about final bosses, final levels, and games, there will be technically spoilers for a decent amount of games, just to let you know, but I think you'd figure that if you were clicking on a greatness of final bosses game video. Now, I'm not here to talk about the top 10 greatest final bosses in gaming, but I just want to talk about some of them and what makes them so great. The greatness of a final boss. Why is a final boss, I feel, so important in a game, and sometimes I feel like games just don't get that? Let's talk about it, because to me, a final boss, a final level is basically the build up to everything you've done for the entire game, right? I mean, literally, you hear about something in the beginning of the game, and you're like, all right, my journey is to get there, to do that, to stop whatever it is, to get to a location, whatever it is, whatever it may be. And for some reason, some games don't quite nail it, but there are plenty of games that really, really do. There are some rules to final bosses to me that make one really damn good. For one, you gotta have good music. You gotta have great music, great atmospheric music that really immerses you in this final battle. That feels grand, that feels epic. Potentially on what the game is. Not every game's gonna even have a final boss, But even if the final level, let's say it's a more somber game, and it's just more of those something that does have a final boss, but at least still is grand in its own right. Two, the final level has to feel unique compared to other levels in the game, other missions, other quests, other areas. It's just gotta feel, again, grand. Number three for me, if there are final bosses in the game, don't have the final boss bring in other enemies. If you know me, I've talked about it on my series Back of the Backlog a lot. Whenever there's a boss that brings in other enemies, I think it's such bad game design. I think it's lazy. The reason why is because it's like, are you just, like, why? Like, you created that final boss, you created that boss, even if it's just a normal boss, you created that boss. Let me fight that guy, not the 20 other enemies. Like, it's about him. In the end of the day, what makes that final boss encounter so memorable is fighting that boss. But if you're also fighting 20 other enemies, well, it just becomes a normal battle. It just becomes a normal battle with some super guy at the middle. Okay, that's not nearly as entertaining or as memorable at all. It just becomes more frustrating and more like, all right, let me get out these other guys and then let me try to fight this guy at the same time. No, you don't need to have other things in there. You just have faith in your boss. Have faith in your boss and design him in a way where you can just verse them. Some of my favorite final bosses are easily in the 3D Mario series. I mean, Super Mario Galaxy, the original, unbelievably epic final stage and final boss. I mean, once you enter, it goes dun, 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 run. Like, it is, the orchestra is absolutely brimming with wonder. It is absolutely getting you hype to fight this Bowser man. And once you get to the end, you have this epic little cutscene, and then you just go through several planets, taking him out in sort of different ways. Normally, every single time you fight Bowser, it's the same structure with just one tweak. But in this one, he actually does do different moves, and then once you get to the main middle reactor, it is unbelievably epic. It is just the music and everything. It's how you do a boss battle. And that's not only that, but Super Mario 3D World. I mean, Super Mario 3D World, the whole Cap Bowser, the chase and everything. I mean, that shit there was nothing like it in that game, And so having Meowser follow you and you're climbing up, like, it's technically a boss, but it's also a chase sequence, and it is so incredible. And the way they did it was unbelievably fantastic. Again, crazy. Super Mario Odyssey has you going to the fucking moon and shit, and then you actually verse Bowser, but then that's not it. Then you actually get to play as Bowser, and you get to run around as Bowser, and it is the most epic. It's just a masterpiece. And how, while it's still technically a final boss and you did verse Bowser one time, there's also more after that just makes you so damn excited to play. Playing as Bowser Super Mario Odyssey was unbelievable. One of the best things ever. One that I played like last year was Earthbound. I love Earthbound now, and Gygus, man. Gygus. That is a name that you are so curious about throughout your journey, and when you finally see Gygus, it is just, it's something, man. Seeing Gygus, almost essentially not being able to really see Gygus, is just, it's something I've never experienced in a game. It is amazing. That is one of my favorite final bosses for sure. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be all about final bosses, just final levels. You know, there's plenty of games that don't have final bosses. They just, you know, they end in their own story, essentially, like with Tearaway Unfolded. I love that game. And in Tearaway Unfolded, you know, you see everything you've done throughout the journey, and then you essentially enter yourself. You enter the controller, and then there's just this nice storybook where the character you're playing as reads your journey, and it is quite, it hits me. I love it. I really do love that. Then an example of a final boss that maybe isn't as exciting. I remember I really enjoyed the game Bully. I loved Bully, but the final boss wasn't memorable. It was just this regular school fight that is just like any other fight. And I was curious. I was like, I wonder why that's the case. Like, you know, they do all these missions that are just over the top, ridiculous, and just a ton of fun. And then the final boss is just like any other fight that you have. And you're like, well, that's not that exciting then. You know, it isn't the end of the world. Like, it doesn't make or break a game, a final boss or a final level, but it can enhance it, you know. While I still enjoyed playing through something like the Bully one, you know, it's still not all that great. You know, it's not one that sticks with your mind as really good or very creative. You know, it just kind of sticks as like, okay, that's like every other fight in the game. Played so many games, so I can't quite sit here and be like, oh, I remember all these final bosses, which one should I name? But it's just the ones that came to my mind are like the 3D Mario ones and like Earthbound and stuff. I love those, but I mean, there's so many that are awesome, but I'm not gonna, like I said, I don't want to list them. I just want to give ideas as to why I think certain ones are really good and why they work. You know, I think the big thing is the environments, the fact that you can let a player just fight the boss. You don't have to have other enemies on the battle. That just is just annoying, you know. And you have something that's unique to that boss, something that makes it memorable. But yeah, I don't think this video is gonna be too crazy long. I just wanted to talk about, you know, final bosses, final levels in games. I love that section of a game. You know, you're working up to it the whole damn time, and you want it to be good. You know, you really want it to be good. And when it's not, that is disappointing. But when it is good, oof, sticks in your mind for years and years to come. And why does it stick in your mind? You know, that's why I think atmosphere, a uniqueness of a boss design, and letting you verse the boss. Don't have other enemies in the battle, just let me verse the boss. The only time a boss worked where you have other enemies in the battle is like Doom Eternal. The way you actually gain back ammo and health is by killing other enemies, so you have to kill other enemies in order to take on that boss, you know, so that makes sense. But every other game, you don't got no excuse. Remove them dudes and just make a memorable final boss, man. Memorable final level, whatever it is. Let me know what makes a good final boss to you. What makes a good final level to you? Let me know down in the comments below. What's your favorite final boss? What's your least favorite final boss? You know, again, there's so many. I could have named, you know, a ton, but no reason to. It's not what I'm doing this for. But let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. And, yeah, man. Click that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 3,000, yo. Peace out. I may not be here December. Please give me one more Christmas, please, I don't want to miss them. It may be 13 degrees, but when I'm with my family, they want me up to 103. They want me up to 103. I know I'm on my dying days. My heart is taking over me. I no longer